Jump off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa.
Promise you joy in the mystery.
Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, laugh, love, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And welcome. You are tuned into Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, AM 1050, FM 102.3, FM 106.5, and streaming everywhere. iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, Stitcher, iTunes, Amazon Music, and more, because it is my job to splatter more hope and happiness on you, especially in the morning now. I am grateful for my promotion into the morning show. Thank you, Fred, and thank you to all the guys that support me. General Manager Mark Westwood, Rick in the Morning, who's also behind the scenes, making sure everything automates well as all the guys in studio. Thank you so much at KCAA for all the support. And for those of you who have accidentally found me this morning on your radio dial, AM 1050 or FM 102.3, FM 106.5, then you are listening to the voice of Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah. I was actually introduced to Oprah as the Asian Oprah by Michael Bernard Beckwith. And her response was to look at me, look down, look at me again, smile, and say, "Nice pants." And yes, it took everything for me not to say, "Do you want them?" But I did not do that. But anyways, by education, I am an organizational psychologist. That just means I work with business and psychology. So professionally, I go into companies and help them with things like leadership, conflict, communication, corporate culture, how to have less stress and more joy at work, which lends itself to me doing some TV commentary. You may have heard me on Busted on the Job on Fox, Totally Out of Control People on Discovery Channel or ABC. And some reality shows. I did Recipe Rehab with my kids making some fried rice and spring rolls on CBS, and the plethora of interviews I've had in the last couple of years because of my #1 best-selling book, 8 Ways to Happiness from Wherever You Are. So that's the long introduction of who your host is today and every morning at 8 a.m. Pacific time here on the station KCAA that leaves no listener behind. And this morning, I am going to answer the question of the day earlier than I normally do in the second segment, because I have an interview for you that is worth airing the entire thing. And it is an important interview because we continue to kind of be like big ships. So if you're steering a big ship, if you make a right turn, I don't know if you've ever tried to steer a sailboat or a powerboat, when you first turn, nothing happens, especially on a big tanker. You have to continue to apply that pressure in order for the boat to turn. And so it is with stopping AAPI hate crime. So is the ability to end racism. It is something that is important to me. Obviously, I am Asian, but that's not why all racism, all injustice, all inequity is not okay. So I wanted to bring you my interview with Dion Lim, who is, you'll know her face if you're in Northern California and streaming this show. She is the reporter who really helped put the opportunity for improvement on the big table as far as the hate crimes towards Asians, especially elder Asians, which actually began quite a bit ago. And I remember signing a petition in June that said, why is hate crimes against Asian Americans not making it on mainstream media? And so that was back in June, way before the spa shootings in Atlanta. I don't know which came first, if they actually recognized the call to balance out some of the crime with what was happening with the Asian Americans, or because of the spa, all of a sudden the spotlight was there. But it doesn't matter. The good news is there's a spotlight on an area that needs improvement. And this spotlight particularly is really hits close to home, obviously, because of my own Asian roots. So that interview will be coming to you for the second and third segments. But before that, I will answer the question of the day, which came in to me on a LinkedIn message. And that was, how do we motivate people who are stressed out? And this is from someone who's leading several groups in a large organization. And it's a great question, because I'm sure leaders right now are going through that exact thing as we peek from under the pall of the pandemic and wondering how we're going to rebuild, reconstruct, or regain the momentum that we had. Hashtag BC19, the time before COVID, as I like to call it. And so it's a good question. So right now, it seems like we are going through an employee shortage, which is kind of hard to believe, in the sense that I thought there would be a surge of people getting back to work. Now, some people have said, well, it's because there's still money for unemployment, so people don't feel the need to work. That could be true. My answer to that is, at some point, hopefully, I know that people's meaning in life and their sense of importance is based on being part of something and being meaningful in the work that they're doing. So I hope that you are taking advantage of life with a capital L and finding something that you are doing that is meaningful and important. And to that end, I think it is helpful for leaders to begin coming back with that. So if I were your organizational consultant right now with that question, how do we motivate people who are stressed out? A multi-pronged approach. And so many companies already have instituted wellness programs. I actually get to teach a moving meditation called Balanced Tai Chi Gong. So if you have wellness programs, or maybe start a wellness Wednesday, and every Wednesday at lunch, bring in a special speaker. You can ask me. I'll come in and teach my Balanced Tai Chi Gong classes and offer employees a way to learn some coping skills and some stress management skills as they return to work, as well as all the resources that people are scrambling to try to figure out themselves and maybe getting overwhelmed. Resource kits, or how to, or where you can get help from. I certainly wanted this show. I often highlight things that are going on around our community as an effort, especially when they're free, as an effort to help answer those questions. So if you're an employer that wants to be a preferred employer, having a non automated service where you actually get a person answering questions, so that people who are wanting to understand if there are insurance resources that they have because they work with you, both in terms of mental health. That's been a huge thing that's been in the media, which is a great thing. But now that we're okay with saying, I'm not well, my mental health is suffering, where do we go? What are the resources that you can reach out to or have access to? So a FAQ sheet or a hotline for help in the organization might be also a great addition, or a technique, or a tool as we return into work. Resources as far as specific to the pandemic, maybe grants or small business loans, or things that have not been accessible before. I know people are really offering things that they never offered before in an effort to help with people who have been super negatively impacted by this pandemic. And just if you're a person who has been impacted, and maybe not horrifically, maybe you had some savings to fall back on, and maybe you had some support with family, to have a lot more compassion for those who did not. I know that there's a lot of fear going around right now because of the evictions and the moratoriums on the rent. That is a call for those of us who may have not hurt so badly, and maybe, instead of shaking your head at the homelessness that you may be seeing, is reaching out and donating your time, your energy, or your cash to organizations that are really trying to help with those who have been more impacted negatively by the pandemic than not. Because I really don't want our country to be this disparate, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. I know that I became an American. I chose to be an American because this is the land of opportunity, and it is also the land where we help each other. So hopefully you're hearing this and heeding a little softer heart. Maybe you've gotten a little more frustrated with how things aren't going well. I'm going to ask you to delete those cookies, those bad cookies in the browser, those stale cookies in your life browser, and replace them with a thing called compassion, generosity, love, peace, and joy. This is Dr. Marissa. That was my public service announcement, all together with the question of the day. And we'll be right back with two segments of an interview that I want to highlight again with Dion Lim, and how we can end racism, how we stop AAPI hate, and how we use all these things that are horrible things as chiseling, and how we can make America, this world, our country, ourselves, each other better than we are now. All right. We'll be right back with more of Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa, because it is all about balance. Peace in, peace out, world peace through inner peace. Don't go away. We'll be right back. And we're back. You're tuned in to Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, AM 1050, FM 102.3, FM 106.5, and everywhere streaming. iHeartRadio, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, and more. And of course, on my YouTube channel. If you free subscribe there, you will get alerts of when the next show is on, and you can take it with you as a podcast and actually see and hear what is going on in my living room studio. So I promised my interview with Dion Lim, and here it is. Please enjoy. I do have a very special guest today. Her name is Dion Lim. She's an Emmy award-winning TV news anchor and reporter at ABC KGO TV in San Francisco, and the author of Make Your Moment, the Savvy Woman's Communication Playbook to Getting to the Success You Want. And it is, yes, part of the Asian Oprah giveaway. If you stay till the end, you'll get your own copy. She's based on her experiences as the first Asian American woman to be at the helm of a weekday newscast in 3 major markets, including Kansas City, Charlotte, and Tampa Bay. She's passionate about amplifying voices of color and has led the charge in shedding light on the hate and assaults targeting Asian Americans in the Bay Area and everywhere else, I might say. It's not just in the Bay Area. She's known for her
work and reporting. It's resonated across the country on ABC News Live, Nightline, and 2020. Whether it be speaking circuit for Fortune 500 companies or in recently published op-eds in the San Francisco Chronicle and in an in-depth interview for New York Magazine about covering hate crimes in the time of COVID-19, Dion's message is loud and clear. Representation matters now more than ever, and we can do it through communication. Please welcome to my studio, Dion. Thank you so much.
I'm so honored to be here. That was quite an introduction. You are on fire.
Thank you so much. And we're getting a little bit of an echo here. I don't know why. So I'll try to fix that. But I thought if with your permission, I'd like to show one of the clips that you did that I thought was particularly encouraging. And for those of you who haven't seen her on camera, which would be surprising, it'll give a baseline for us to jump off, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would give it one idea of what I do.
Reasons. This is just a small fraction of what's coming to light. A woman seen dragged through the streets in Oakland in a strong-armed robbery, clinging to her purse. Less than 5 minutes away, another woman is attacked for her bag and her car stolen. In San Francisco, a man is knocked to the ground in Japantown for his cell phone. Google translated what happened. These are just some of the dozens of incident reports from Asian Americans I've received from you in recent days. After so many high-profile attacks, many are speaking out for the first time, like Neha Tran, COO of the popular Burma Superstar restaurant group.
We felt the need and, like you said, the obligation and the responsibility to use the voice that's been given to us by the previous generation to speak out and say what's happening.
This after multiple incidents at their Oakland location, including this man who threw a bottle of sanitizer at an employee and another bashing in the front window. While these victims are all Asian, it's important to note not all of these crimes are racially motivated. Many in law enforcement tell me Asians just happen to be easy targets for these crimes of opportunity because we're smaller in stature. Asian seniors congregate in places like Chinatowns, but it's also cultural.
I mean, my parents were just robbed in broad daylight here as well. My dad with a stroke, sitting in his car, and he just feels helpless and he's screaming and people.
But now that culture is shifting. We've seen throngs of Asian Americans speaking out. Celebrities like Daniel Wu and Daniel Dae Kim offered a $25,000 reward to assist in the arrest of a suspect in this series of attacks on seniors. Community members are also raising tens of thousands of dollars for patrols. We saw a man pass out hundreds of air horns in Oakland's Chinatown. Manju Kulkarni of the Asian Pacific Policy Planning Council is co-founder of the Stop API Hate Reporting Center, which tracked nearly 3,000 hate-fueled incidents across the country in an 8-month period.
2,800 is really just the tip of the iceberg.
She believes of those reported, 90% of those incidents don't rise to the level of criminal activity, but still need to be reported.
We may not take action on every single one of those as a society, but we need to know and understand what's happening.
So these incidents don't keep happening.
They are so hard to watch. Now, Neha Tran of Burma Superstar also told me he is dedicating $5,000 as a reward to help those who are victimized by crimes like this. Dan and Amma.
It is just so sickening and tiring, Dion, to see these week in and week out like this. And so eye-opening to hear you received dozens of tips in a matter of days. I know that's emotional for you, even as a veteran reporter, but how many do you think actually go unreported?
Yeah, you know, that's a great question because there are no statistics on that. But in my experience alone, the overwhelming majority of the cases I've looked into go unreported. I hear from many children, many grandchildren of victims who say they try and encourage their elders to report, but it is not easy. So in turn, many of them are taking to social media, trying to get the word out however they can.
Now, the good news, obviously, Dion, is we are seeing what's really happening out there, and that's a positive. We can address it.
Indeed.
Yeah, thanks so much, Dion.
Wow. Wow. I mean, I looked at all the clips yesterday. Peace in, peace out. Shout out to Jin, by the way, who is how I found you, and her fireside chat with you. Now, I always ask my guests, did you think when you were young that this is what you were going to be doing?
I have to laugh because I think the only way to eloquently say that is hell no. Because well, first off, being Asian, right? When you grow up, your parents always tell you as a child, okay, you've got to be a doctor, you've got to be a lawyer, you've got to be a mathematician. My dad was a chemist, so he'd bring home super glue and dry ice and all those things, and I think he secretly wanted me to be that. But when I was growing up, I wanted to be a whole host of things, right? Maybe an actress, or maybe some kind of, I don't know, online presence, even though back then, online wasn't really even a big deal. So when I started reporting, I was always typecast and always kind of enjoyed doing the happy stories, right? There's even a poster that is in our building that says Dion Lim finds the good, because I do stories about everyday people, seemingly unremarkable people doing extraordinary things. And for most of my career, I thought that was what I would be doing. Never did I think this was going to be my so-called beat, that every day I would wake up and be faced with so many different stories. And it really kind of culminated over the years, but really accelerated with the last administration and the influx of the terms China virus and Kung flu, and people coming forward and feeling like they trusted me to share their stories. And that's kind of how it snowballed.
Yeah. And you're like the go-to person now. People who don't feel comfortable going to the police will go to you. Is that part of why do you think that is?
I feel so incredibly honored that people feel like they can come to me, because when you think about it, going to police is a really invasive, kind of scary process, right? Because first off, there's this distrust, especially with older Asian Americans. I remember my own family not really thinking that the police could be trusted. But when they're coming around, they're poking, they're prodding, looking for evidence, and they're asking you for your phone number and for all of your friends' contacts, it's overwhelming and it's too much, because when you're at the lowest low of your life, right, and you are faced with such a tremendous burden of dealing with awful crime, the last thing you want to do is talk to someone you don't know. And I think because of social media, because of people seeing me on TV, because of me sharing my own story of hate and discrimination, others feel like, okay, maybe she's okay and I trust her. And,
Right.
It's a really amazing thing that people can open up. So for that, I'm really grateful.
And wasn't that great? And there's more where that came from when we return after the break. Don't go away. Dr. Marissa reporting live on Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show on KCAA, the station that leaves no listener behind. Welcome back. You are tuned in to Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, AM 1050, FM 102.3, FM 106.5, and everywhere streaming, because I want to splatter more hope and happiness on you and bring you people who are doing great things to help balance out all the bad news. And today is no exception. Here's the remainder of my interview with ABC news reporter extraordinaire Dion Lim. Enjoy.
Do you ever hesitate to open the video or open another news thing? It's like, are you? Jin sent over your final word on something, and my first thought was, oh my God, she's hit the limit and she's not doing this anymore. I can't take this anymore, which would be understandable. So before you answer that, I'm going to show this particular clip that just hit my heart. And I want you to tell the story behind this. But
Okay.
this is just so that the audience gets an idea of what you're faced with as part of your job.
I want to go with him. I have a heart problem, and after that, it's getting worse. I have to go to hospital. I read this. They have to chase what's going on with my heart. He stayed with me for 20 years, but in my whole life, I had to spend a whole life to remember him. I don't think it should be a human could go through it.
Oh, I remember that like yesterday. It was the most heartbreaking interview I've ever done. And I only had to ask 2 questions because this woman who had lost her son to gun violence very senselessly was telling her story for the very first time. I had tried for a long time to find her, to talk with her, but the family wasn't ready. And when she was ready and agreed to talk, it just opened the floodgates. And that was the day, I'm glad you played that clip. That was the day I was in my office and also in the newsroom, and I melted down. I had a breakdown because I realized I had been harboring all of this pain and just empathy for all of these victims. And it just came spilling out. And I started hyperventilating. And I said to my manager, I said, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. And fortunately, he talked me off a ledge and said, you can do this. This is your purpose. Mm-hmm. And just take your time. Don't worry about deadline. Just try your best. And we got her story out on the air.
Yeah, just beautiful. I'm one that I try to cry once a week because I know it's good for me. Tears are the disinfectant that keep my heart soft. I tell my clients to do that. Wink, wink, nod, nod, Jen. I know that it's part of the healing process, but I also recognize the toll that it takes. So for that reason, I would like to award you with the Dr. Marissa Beneficial Presence on the Planet Award, which I don't give to all my guests because what you're doing is so important as an Asian American yourself in the media. You're not shying away from it. You're actually shedding some healing light to the stories. And that's what I got from doing the research. So thank you.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. I didn't expect this whatsoever, but it means a lot because I say this often and I mean it every single time that on those days that I really want to quit and stop doing this, and I ask myself, why am I doing this? I could easily have a perfectly good career, which I had for the past 15 years without having to bear this burden, but knowing that people are paying attention, knowing that you have taken something away and felt a little bit empowered from the coverage that people are speaking out. To me, that makes me want to keep going.
Yeah, it is really so. And I know we share another thing in common, which is we're both Chinese. We have Chinese immigrant parents, is my understanding. Yes. And so there's, for those who think that we are naturally easy, shy wallflower, sarcasm intended. Sarcasm is another service I offer, that there's some cost. I don't know about your parents, but to this day, when I'm on the air or on camera, and this is not something as a Chinese woman, we are taught that is okay. Did you go through that at all?
Oh, 1,000,000%. And it was not as a parent until I started covering this subject because I have an email from my mom. I mean, God bless her. She's wonderful. But it's that old school way of thinking, right? Of that you need to keep your head down, keep your nose clean, don't cause any trouble. So I'm reporting day in and day out on all of this violence, all of the attacks on the AAPI community. And my mother sent me an email, I'll never forget it, that basically said that I need to stop, that I was bringing dishonor, right, and shame to our people, casting us in a negative light. And I felt very guilty, but I just kept going. I didn't even have the mental fortitude to type an email back to her, a snarky teenage Dion email, because I just said, what's the point? I'm never going to change her opinion. But when I eventually started gaining more traction and people started paying attention, when I showed up on 2020 one day, I think finally, because my mom could quantify my success, right? And that's culturally what they want, is they want their children to be successful. And for her, seeing me on a national stage, that was her realizing the light bulb went off. Oh, this is a good thing.
Yes, I think the same thing with mine. When my book went #1, she finally could say, you know, I'm proud of you. But really, we are, and that's a topic I wanted to just touch on, because we're of a generation that doesn't necessarily follow what that generation followed. The saying, the Japanese and Chinese saying, the nail that stands up is hammered down. And that to toot your own horn is embarrassing. And you don't, family, you know, don't air the dirty laundry. Don't talk about anything personal in public. You can't say, you know, all those icebreaker exercises that we do in the company. Those are not okay because you're sharing some personal stuff. And how dare you? I mean, to this day, when I was modeling, my parents thought I was stripping. I mean, that was the level of, you know, embarrassment and shame for what I was doing. So how do we bridge this gap for us in the media and for you know, those who are doing this work? Because it gets frustrating, right? Because like your the other anchor that was speaking in that clip, you're not necessarily getting the people to speak who are the victims, right? Their children and their grandchildren are saying, you know, you have to speak, right? But they're, because of their cultural upbringing, it's so difficult. So how do we do that? Because it ties into all of that, you know, we're the model minority because we don't speak up and we know our place, blah, blah, blah. Sorry, 4 questions in there. There were 4 questions.
I will answer all of them and solve all the world's problems right now. You know, it is a multifaceted answer, right? And I have to say, during this time when America is looking inward at ourselves and our shortcomings and our prejudices toward other parties, we hear this word, and it's so often in tech in the Bay Area, especially, allyship. And I don't know if people truly know what that term means, because allyship is not some grand gesture necessarily. You do not have to start a rally or do a march down to City Hall and make your voice heard that way, because that's scary to a lot of people, especially Asian Americans who have been brought up in that culture of, right, not being that nail that sticks up. So allyship to me has been shown, and I'm going to give you some examples, some really wonderful ways. There was a terrible incident not too long ago in Oakland, California, where an Asian couple and their 7-year-old daughter were broken into their home. The mother and father were tied up and a blanket was put over them. The 7-year-old had to listen to that experience as her home was getting ransacked. And this story would have gone in the darkness. No one would have known about it had there not been a very brave woman. Her name is Karen. She's a community volunteer. She works a lot with children in Oakland. Her passion is to help others, but that's not her necessary 9-to-5 day job. But she sent me a message because she had seen my work, and she said, Dion, this is a really terrible story. It happened in our community. Will you come if I help tell them their story, if I help share their story. And she helped me. She didn't need translation at this point, but she did kind of soften the blow and made this family feel comforted and secure in that it was okay to share. And believe it or not only the mom, but also the 7-year-old girl went on camera. This is unprecedented, and shared with me every step of the way what happened. And what ultimately ended up resulting was that the community came out and flooded their GoFundMe that the friend had set up. And now they're able to have a little bit of peace. A security camera company came out and installed state-of-the-art technology in their home. Their neighbors are now on the lookout. And it's a very powerful thing. So I think that's one way that we need to help each other is find those ways to get others to be on board and understand that it's for the greater good. I'm not going to ramble on too much longer, but
okay, no. Please.
just yesterday, I had a 71-year-old man who was robbed of his jade necklace, grabbed by the neck, bitten by a woman in a car, dragged down the street with his face down, lost 7 teeth. It took him 5 days to finally understand the importance of speaking out because he was mad. He wanted change. He said enough is enough. Imagine being 71, never speaking out before, but it was his sister. And it was some community leaders that said, this is going to be a good thing. He didn't want to show his face at first, but I said, look, if you show your face, you make this real. You will resonate with everyone else who says, I have a relative or a loved one that looks like you to act and do something. And this morning in my phone, I had at least, I don't know, a dozen offers from different dentists across the Bay Area offering to replace his broken teeth. It was really a touching moment.
That's awesome. Awesome. Is this by any chance the guy?
Oh, no, but this is another one. This is a man whose story would go unreported. I tried so hard to find him. He was beaten at a bus stop randomly in San Francisco. And I'm blurring his eyes because I couldn't find him, but someone who cared about him shared this with me and said, if you can help find him, I would really like to be able to tell his story and help him in some way, but we can't help if we don't know who it is.
Right. And that's the hard part. And if you've just tuned in and you're wondering who this beautiful woman on my stage is today, I am Dr. Marissa. You're tuned in to Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa. And today's beautiful guest is Dion Lim. She is the Emmy Award-winning news anchor up in San Francisco with ABC and KGO TV. And she's here to enlighten, as you know, every other week. I have been trying to continue to keep the limelight on moving from Asian hate to let's get into the solution. What can we do to now begin to heal not just the hate in our community, especially in our community, but also trying to chip away at the racism that seems to have taken over our country, at least in the public's eye. So I'm so delighted to have her here. We've been talking about the different stories that she's had to go through. I think one of the things I wanted to highlight when you were saying, all these, every day you're getting stories every day. And I know when watching those clips, the most natural reaction is, oh my God, like, how can this be happening? And how dare they? And then we go into this very strong, let's find where to put the blame. And I think that that's a natural thing for us human beings, but I think there's multi-levels of solution that blame not necessarily will bring us into moving into solution. So I saw your clips. You actually are part of Be the Change. You don't just report it, but you're going after the assistant DA or the actual DA, which is brave because you're actually doing something. What can people do on besides shake their heads and say, this is horrible, how can this happen, and who's to blame?
Yeah. I love that you're asking this because there's one thing about showing a scandalous video and having no context, right? And then going a step further and providing a solution, one that's long lasting, one that's tangible, one that's more than just, oh, it'll be okay, and go to this website. Because frankly, if we keep telling people, go to this website and donate, they cannot connect with how that is actually directly helping. And I get that criticism a lot from the audience. So I would say there are a number of ways, and finding that one solution that fits with you isn't going to necessarily be the same as somebody else's. I would recommend having those really challenging conversations, right? Whenever you have an opportunity to educate, please do it, if you are Asian American or not. And that's why I was so proud to be a part of producing a piece about the model minority myth for Good Morning America, because that shows the deep-rooted history of Asian Americans. And when you look at our history of oppression in the US, it actually is not all that different from the oppression that other immigrants from different ethnic groups went through. So when there is, for example, tension and racism within different ethnic groups, when you can interject something and just say, hey, we need to work together, or we built the railroad, but this group also had to go through years of slavery, that can be a turning point, and maybe sometimes enough, because facts don't lie. That's the thing, is that people for the longest time thought that Asian hate on Asian Americans was not real. But once they started seeing it and getting the statistics behind it, they realized that, oh, having the solution is very key, and this is real because we need to work on it. I would say another way is, what are you good at? Think about what you have to offer the world and how can you manifest that into the good. And I always love this story. It is the oldest fortune cookie factory in Oakland, California. They decided they had to do something. The factory had been taken over by the younger generation of their family. It had gotten passed down, and they made BLM fortune cookies. I'm going to send you a box because these are so creative. They are made with activated charcoal and dark chocolate, and on the inside have a small saying along with resources of where you can help to have a conversation about Black Lives Matter, but quotes from prominent Black Americans. So when you think about it, it is something that is so uniquely Asian American, Americanized Asian American, right? And so easy for anybody to enjoy. And then you are making change by putting a little slip of paper inside. I mean, come on, it doesn't get any better than that.
Yes, it was it. My daughter sent me a picture of a guy she just started dating. She's going to kill me for saying this on the air, but and he's African American, and she's Hapa, half Chinese and half Caucasian. And the waiter in the Chinese restaurant brought 2 fortune cookies, and one was dark chocolate and one was the vanilla.
Oh my God, I love that. I love that.
And I said, well, it's a valuing diversity Chinese restaurant, we think, we hope, but that is wonderful. And you're right. I mean, we don't all have to be activists, but even talking about, I know I got to facilitate the Santa Monica Community Listening Hate Asian Forum. And just having that forum for several of the individuals to have the first time they've ever talked about what it was like being told to go home, go back to your own country, being called, I was called a gook a year before COVID happened. I mean, this is like, 2000. I remember when I first moved to Seal Beach, and I, going in the grocery store in a pavilions and having a woman actively discriminate against me, and then having another community woman say, I apologize, we're not like this. We're not like this. And so I think for wherever you are, to take that next step in comfort. So where you used to laugh at jokes, calling a Chinese person someone with jaundice, or I actually had a guy say, in all honesty to me, I understand why Asians are bad drivers, is because their eyes are so slanted, they have no peripheral vision. And he actually told me this in all sincerity. And I was so shocked. I didn't say anything. So it also behooves us as Asian Americans to not necessarily be bound by our traditional cultural message, to not say anything. And I think that is just as important as educating the non-Chinese supporters. So I guess I'm appealing to our Asian brothers and sisters, and especially the generation above. Maybe that will never, it's so deeply ingrained that I don't think I'll ever get my mom to, my Chinese mom to agree that we should be talking about this, where your mom was before Nightline. So, but I think it's a good thing that we're talking about it.
I could absolutely listen to her and talk to her and have fun with her. Obviously, you notice that we look like we've been friends for a long time, but we actually just met through a mutual friend, Jen. Thank you, Jen, again for the introduction. And I hope you take her words to heart, because this is not just a moment. This is not just, let's hashtag stop AAP I hate. This is a life's journey to end the racism that is part of our culture here, unfortunately, that became, our last president was good at tearing off the Band-Aid that was covering an infection of racism that had been getting even more infected under the Band-Aid. So I have that to thank him for. And Capitol Hill was definitely a symptom and a pussy outburst of that. Sorry, couldn't resist. But the good news is we are healing. The air is getting to it. The attention is getting to it. We are getting to it. We're all doing what we can. So I hope that you take those words to heart. If you'd like the entire interview, go to my YouTube channel, free subscribe. If you'd like to be a guest on my show and have your story or book or product or service highlighted, please do contact me at drmarissa.life. And remember, it's all about balance. Peace in, peace out, world peace through inner peace. Remember, Dr. Marissa's reporting live, always reminding you to have the best day ever.